Greetings and salutations. Thank you for clicking on the video. This is just a collection of tips and tricks that I have come across recently or have been reminded of for some reason or another. And a few of these I showed you in some videos that I had to delete. I did a few videos about working with the XFS file system. In the first two videos I posted, I was really jazzed about it, and I was going, hey, this is fast, this is cool, and everything. And then, of course, it ended up to be a problem. And people have said, well, just leave the videos up because there's a lot of good information in there. I said, yeah, I can do that, but the problem is that if I do a video where I'm really excited about something, somebody's going to go off and do it, and then they're going to come back and they're going to say, well, you said this was cool, because they didn't see the follow-up video where I said, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea. So the best thing to do is just get rid of those videos, and no amount of annotations or warnings in the description is going to stop people from doing that, and I just have a problem leaving things like that up. So anyway, some of this stuff I've already covered, you may have seen, and some of it might be new to you. So the first thing that I want to talk about here is splitting the file manager window. Now, for some reason or the other, I didn't know you could do this. I knew you could do it in Dolphin, in the KDE desktop, and I've known that you could do it there for years, but this is Nemo, and this also works in Nautilus, and it also works in Kaha, which is the file manager for the Mate desktop. So if you're running some Ubuntu-based distro here with any of the more popular desktops, it'll probably work. I don't know if it works in Thunar or not. I just don't happen to have Thunar up and running anywhere. But anyway, the command is F3, and it splits the screen. How super useful is that? I've been opening up two file manager windows for years to get the same functionality. So if I want to go here to the work directory, and I wanted to drag a video into videos or something like that, okay? So watch. Now, it's running a little slow because we are in a virtual environment. But there you go. I could just take that and drag it over, and that's how I could do it. No big deal at all. And just have to remember which one you're focused on. So right now I'm on this one, and I'm on that one over there. So you see the things change. Pretty cool, huh? That has come in very useful since I figured that out. Been there all the time, just didn't know it was there. And there's one guy that swears I showed that in another video before I posted the tip a while back. And I said, no, I don't think so. I didn't even know it was there. Okay, the next thing I want to show you is a cool trick that you can do where you can restart your desktop. And this is mostly for the Cinnamon desktop, although it does work sort of kind of in Ubuntu. So I'm going to show you in Cinnamon first, then I'm going to show you on the Unity desktop. So you'll see how it works. So let's say you're sitting here working and your desktop crashes, like all of your icons disappear off the desktop, or just it goes a little crazy. This happens. Or maybe you are playing with the theme and you add some stuff and it doesn't automatically show up. Well, ordinarily you would log out and log back in. Well, that's a pretty long process, and if you have any programs up and running, then they're going to be closed and you're going to have to reopen the program. Well, you don't have to do that. All you have to do is hit alternate F2. As long as the desktop is functioning enough to be able to give you this, then you can just restart the whole thing. So let's go ahead and do it. So just type in the letter R and then press enter. And the screen's going to go wonky here for a little while, and it's going to come back up. And now you see that the desktop has restarted. If we had made any changes to the theme, they would show up. If there were any problems with icons loading or the menu wasn't functioning properly, well, you've just restarted the whole thing and reset it. So that's pretty cool. And you can do the same thing in Ubuntu. So let's jump over here. I've got an Ubuntu virtual machine running because I'm going to show you some other stuff in here too. And now in Ubuntu it's a little bit different. I don't know how much of a help this is going to be because this will log you out. But let's say that the log out function doesn't work, but you can do alternate F2 to run a command. Well, the R is not going to work, but restart will. And it's already listed because I was testing that, but I will type that in anyway. Okay, now let me show you what this does. Now we're not logging out. We're just going to restart the desktop. And then I can log back in. Now this is a log out and a log in using the restart command. So like I said, I don't know how useful that is, but alternate control backspace doesn't seem to work on the Ubuntu Unity desktop. And let me see, I can send that to the machine. No, alternate control backspace doesn't work here. And that is ordinarily the command that will let you log out, just force a log out and restart everything. So the only way that you can do that is alternate F2 and then type in restart, assuming that function works. If not, you're going to have to maybe force log out or go to a TTY or something. I have no idea. It's one of the reasons I don't use Unity, but I thought I'd show you anyway. Haha. Okay, the next one is a great little terminal application that I came across. I was working with a bunch of conversions using a sound converter program to run conversions on things, and this particular program, when it runs, tries to suck up 100% of the CPU. And that's not a problem now that I have gotten off of XFS, if you saw that last video where I was talking about that. But you may run into a situation where you want to cap a process. Let's say that you're running video, you're compiling a video, that's the best way to put it, and you're rendering it, and the video editor is just sitting there sucking up all of your CPU, and your fans are spinning up and all that other stuff, and your spans are messed up as well, which would really suck. You could go to like htop here, and then you could pick your process, and then you could renice it. So you could change the priority, you could drop the priority way down. The only problem with that is that if you do that and nothing else is happening on the system, that's not going to limit the CPU usage. What that's going to do is it's just going to say if the computer has to do something else, that something else has more priority than the running process. So your CPU is still going to be sitting there at 100% or something like that. So changing the niceness of the process isn't going to help. So what we would like to do here is we would like to find a way to kind of tell the system, hey, don't give this thing all the process time in the world because it doesn't need it. So I'm going to show you how this works. So in this case, I'm going to split the screen. If you don't have tabs in your terminal or don't know how to use them or whatever, just open up a second terminal. So here we have the first process listed, which in this case is Simple Screen Recorder. And currently it's taking about 57% of the CPU time because it's capturing high definition video. I expect nothing less, but if that gets out of control for some reason, then we can just use cpulimit, and I'll show you how it works. So what we're going to do is type in cpulimit. Make sure I get that in properly now. Don't want to do any typos. And first of all, we're going to give it the process. And the process number on this is 7122. And then we're going to tell it how much we want to limit it to, and this is in percentage. So this is -L. So we're going to say currently it's taking 56% or something like that. It's where it's kind of hovering around. So let's say that I don't want this thing to go crazy and I don't want to get any more than 75. There we go. So that's the command. It found the service, and now it is going to not let that have any more than 75% of the processor resources. If you do the master process and you have a bunch of child processes going on, that's the one that you want to do. You want to make sure that you do that master, because if it's running threads and a child process under that, then this will just average all that stuff out. So this is great if you're rendering video, you've tried to lower the priority by using nice and renice here. It doesn't help. You can do cpulimit, and while that process runs out, it's not going to make your computer work too hard. So it's pretty cool. Now, when you're done with your task, if you just close the program, then cpulimit goes poof. It just says, oh, it's dead anyway, never mind, it's done. But if you want to readjust the percentage of CPU that you give it, then just Control-C. Now I have killed that process, killed the process that's controlling the process, And then I can change this number here, and I can give it more or less, whatever works. So it's a really, really, really cool little application. It is not in the repositories, but it is in, or no, rather, it's not installed when you install the system, but it's in the repositories. Get it straight, Joe. Thank you very much. So you can just do like sudo apt install, and that will show up, and might find it useful if you find yourself running processes that take a long time, that suck up a lot of CPU. So you can not only lower the priority of the process, but you can also control how much resources it gets on the machine. Okay, so let's go ahead and get out of here, and I can exit one of these terminals. Control D to exit. Yay. Let's move on to the next thing on the list. All right, here's another wonderful thing that I just found out that I did not know. This comes from a viewer. Thank you very much. You left it in the comment, and I appreciate it because, boy, this came in handy. I was reloading my system the other day, and I needed to do this. So it was very nice to know that it worked this way. We have talked about Gdebi many times because it's a really nifty little application. Gdebi is a, well, type it in right, dude. There we go. It's a graphical application that allows you to install deb packages. And we've talked about it before, and that's what it looks like running graphically. Well, what I didn't know was that Gdebi worked from the command line. Usually, the standard practice if you want to install a deb file at the command line is to use dpkg with the I argument, and that will install it. The only problem is that dpkg usually has a problem finding dependencies, and then you have to run another command. It can be a bit of a pain to work with. Gdebi is very cool, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's reinstall something. There's something already here, and I'll just reinstall it. So we are going to cd to downloads and packages, autofill. Okay, and we're going to list the storage, and you see I got a bunch of debs in here and some zips and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to use Gdebi to install something from here. Now if I type in Gdebi and then I choose the name of a package, let's do Ocean Audio there, and run it without root user privileges, it just tells me about the package. Okay, not much information came along with that, but let's do Google. Now we should see a lot. Yeah, a little bit more information. Just gives us a description, and then it reminds us that if we want to install that we can do that with root privileges. So let's go ahead and reinstall something. And I think that you can pass it more than one, although I haven't tried it. So you could do like, well, let's just see what happens. We'll do it. So sudo Gdebi, and let's see, we'll give it Ocean. All right, and Google. Won't hurt anything to reinstall the browser. Okay, so both of those packages are listed. Now let's turn it loose. Asks for my password. Yes, okay, it's going to do them one by one here. Sure, why not? It'll take a couple of seconds, but we can see it in operation. So, like I said, this came in really handy the other day when I was reloading the machine because I didn't have to be in a desktop environment to load the deb files that I wanted to put in the system. I already had them. I was working at a TTY. I like to do as much as I can from a terminal when I'm installing and then jump into the desktop environment. So usually what I do is I install the system, and then the next thing that I do is to jump to a TTY when it comes up to the login screen and then run all the updates. So that way when I do start the desktop, everything is already there, especially if I'm retaining the data that's in my home partition, because the data from my home partition reflects the current state of all the software, whereas when I install like from a disk image, then that actually installs old software. So if you open something up, there might be a problem there, clash, because you have a configuration file that's looking for the latest version, but then you run an older version, and it might cause an issue. Okay, so it seemed to have worked. I don't know whether it did both or not. Looked like it did. No, it did. It did. Yep, let's see now. Let's see here. Did it do both? Okay. No, it just installed the one. So maybe you can only do it one at a time. Because I don't see the Google Chrome stuff there. Anyway, it might be a little limited, but it's still cool. So there you go. You get the idea. You can goof around with that yourself and figure out whether you want to use it. So, alrighty then. Let's get back to our list of stuff to talk about. Oh, this is one that's really cool. We're going to create a text file without opening a text editor. Now, you might find this useful, or you might find this to be stupid, but it's kind of a cool little trick that I actually learned in class when I was taking a class about Linux, and then I was talking to somebody the other day, and I remembered it and was telling them about it, and he said, well, I didn't know you could do that. So every once in a great while you have to create a text file, and you may want to, you could open an editor like Vim or VI or whatever you call it, or Nano or something like that. But what if you're only putting like 1 or 2 lines in a text file? What if that's all you need to do? Well, you could open an editor and do that if you want to, but there's actually a quicker way to do that. And there's more than one way to do this. You could use the echo command, but that's a lot of typing, because it would be like echo, and then you would put something in the text here, text, and then you would direct that into a file, and you could really only do 1 line at a time. How about something a little bit more useful? Well, you can use the cat command. So we're going to do cat, and then we're going to redirect the output into a file. We'll call this file test.txt. Okay, so press enter. And now you see we got a blinking cursor, and it's just waiting for input. So we can put anything in here we want to. We could put in Linux is cool. I love Linux. Okay, so I got my text in there the way I want it. Oop, press the right thing. Thank you. Okay, so Linux is cool. There you go. Now, to make that take, you're done putting your input in. All you would have to do is use Control and D. Oh, get the focus right there. Control D. There we go. Now to see what's in that file, just cat. And for some reason or other, it dumped me out at my prompt right next to it, but that's not in the file right there. It's just the way it does it. And we can confirm that just by doing nano with the same thing. Nano. And then we'll do test.txt. See, there you go. So I've just created this tiny little text file, and I never even had to open up an editor. How useful that is to you, I don't know, but it's a cool little thing that you can do. Okay, clear screen, please. Next little thing. There's one that I've actually showed in a video a long time ago, but like I said, this is another thing that came up that I think is a really cool little trick, and it's called push D and pop D. And we're all kind of familiar, if you've worked at a terminal, with CDing to different places in the system. So, for instance, you might be working in downloads, like we were earlier. All right, so now we're in downloads. But what happens is that sometimes you find yourself wanting to jump to another directory for just a couple of seconds. You might say, oh, I've got to jump over here and I've got to edit something, but you don't want to lose your place in the file system. Well, that's where pushd comes along. So you, instead of doing cd to the directory you want to go, let's say that I want to go to the etc directory for some reason. So pushd, and we'll give it a place here, etc. Now I can do whatever I need to do over here, list files, edit things, whatever. Now I get done. Let's say I'm working on something in the other directory, and I need to get something in this directory straight before I can do anything over there. So I get done with my editing, do popd, and it dumps me right back where I was. So pretty cool, huh? I know, it's just one of those little things. Might find it useful, you might not. All right, the last thing I want to look at in this video is something that I covered in one of those videos about XFS that I had to take down, and I'm going to go back through it again just because I think it's very useful information, and that is enhancing the performance of your virtual machines. If you mess around with virtual machines a lot, you may notice that they run slow, even if you have SSDs as your base on the host. In other words, you're not using spinning drives, you're using SSDs, and you're going, boy, this thing runs slow. Well, the biggest bottleneck with a virtual machine is not the amount of memory you give it. I've seen people do videos where they go, I don't understand why this machine runs so slow, I gave it 4 gigabytes of memory. The biggest bottleneck is I/O from the disk. That slows the system down. So there are several things that you can do to make these things run a lot faster, regardless of what base you're using, okay? So the first thing that you can do is let's go in here to settings for this machine, and the first thing that you can do is when you set up your storage, you go to your SATA controller that's going to hold the virtual disk file there, and make sure that it is set to use the host I/O cache. What that is going to do is it's going to just pass a lot of data through to the host I/O and the caching, so that's going to speed things up quite a bit. So you get a little bit of buffering there. So that's something that you want to make sure that you enable. The other thing that you want to do is don't create huge disks unless you need to create huge disks. Keep them kind of small. Like this disk is just 16 gigabytes. That's plenty for a virtual machine. You don't need a whole lot more than that. Okay, so the next thing that you might want to do is to format your virtual machine with a non-journaling file system. And that would be like ext2 or something like that. You could also install ext4 and then you could turn the journal flag off, but that's kind of a pain. You just install ext2 and it'll work just fine. So let us do on this virtual machine that we're talking about here. Let's go ahead and just show you some of the ways that how I've set this up. So we're going to do sudo blkid, which is going to give me a block ID, and get my password in there. Okay, you see that this machine has a swap partition up front, and then it's got an ext2 partition. That is a non-journaling file system. ext2 has been around for a long time, and you still use it today for things like USB sticks and SD cards and any kind of small file system, because you really don't want journals on those things. And then the next thing that I will do here is to make sure that I enable write caching on the virtual drive. Now I know that kind of sounds a little strange, but this will actually make things go faster. So let's open up disks. There we go. Well, I had it and then I lost it. No. Okay, so we'll open up this program, jump over here and look at the drive settings, and enable the write cache. Now, if you enable the write cache on a virtual machine's hard drive, what you're going to get is double buffering, because usually I do that on the host machine as well. So you have two caches running, and then it's got the direct pass through to the host cache. So this is going to make things go a lot faster. Now, with all of this speed, there comes a price, and that is that our data is more at risk when we do it this way. Because, first of all, we've got double buffering running. If the machine should lose power and shut itself down, then, this is going to be an issue. You might lose data. And also with a non-journaling file system, if there is a hard crash, there is a chance of data corruption. So it usually fixes itself pretty good. I did a test on that myself when I started doing this and using ext2, and I just shut the machines down, and I didn't have any data loss that I could see, and it seemed to repair the system. But what you might see is when it boots up that FSCK kicks in and it says, oh, hold on, I got to do something with ext2, and it does it. Another downside to using ext2 is that some of the functions that you might be used to aren't available, like you can't defragment ext2, you can't put a swap file in ext2 the way I showed you in the last video I posted, because it just won't support that. But in a virtual machine, what are you doing? I mean, this is for testing usually and playing around, and you're not going to keep them around forever anyway, so you just want to play and you want it to be a pleasant experience. You can use ext2 and enable the write caching, and that will make the system go a lot faster. And you'd be surprised, like these machines, when I do this, I only give them 1 gigabyte of memory and let them swap and all that stuff. And if you have the write caches enabled on both the host drive and the guest drive, and you use a non-journaling file system, it makes it go really, really, really fast. Okay, so there you go, gang. It's a whole bunch of tips and tricks rolled into one video. Just some things I wanted to share, and thank you for watching. I do appreciate it. Now, I do realize that I showed you a bunch of stuff. There's always about 3 or 4 different ways to do this kind of stuff in Linux, so these are not the only ways. It's just little things that I've picked up along the way, and so, take it for what it is. Do check out freedompenguin.com, check out Easy Linux on the web, and check out Easy Linux on Facebook. And if you do, give it a like. I sure would appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We will do it again soon.